morning, and welcome to the Selectmen's Corner. My name is Frank Pannorfi. I'm chairman of the Sandwich Board of Selectmen. Selectmen's Corner really is a program designed to keep the citizens of Sandwich informed as to what's happening within their government. And we've done a number of these programs, and this is a continuing effort to solve that. This morning I want to introduce my guest, a colleague of mine from the Sandwich Board of Selectmen, Selectman Jim Pierce. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Frank. Always good to be with you.
Same here, Jim. Yeah. Same here. We saw each other last night at our Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Yes,
you know, you're not getting tired of me, so I appreciate you coming this morning.
So
far, so good. Great. Today's topic really is one that is timely for us in terms of town meeting. Town meeting is something that is unique primarily to New England. It's something that I feel very strongly about, but when I first became involved, it was so totally foreign coming from a city environment in New Jersey. You know, we had a typical representative form of government. But today I'd like to talk to you about that. I know you're a strong proponent of town meeting. And to start with, I'll ask you this question. How do we get to town meeting? Where are all the things that, you know, eventually show up on that document that we call the warrant?
Yeah. Well, that's the key. The business of the town is transacted at town meeting. The Board of Selectmen, our authority, our power rests in what we choose to put on the warrant. There are other places where warrant articles come from. The Planning Board, by Massachusetts general law, can put items on the warrant with bypassing the selectmen completely. The Community Preservation Committee can also put things on the warrant, although we've established a policy in town that the town manager signs off on anything that involves town land in that sense. But the Community Preservation Committee also generates warrant articles. Many of the other, there's 25 different committees in town that deal with various and sundry issues on a volunteer basis, and they funnel articles to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen can generate articles on our own. The citizens can petition for an article. We'll have one of them on the warrant this May. But the voters make the final decisions. The Board of Selectmen can choose not to put a question to the voters. So in a sense, we can make a decision by not asking a question. But as you know, my opinion is we should avoid doing that. You know, if all we put on the warrant, it's like a restaurant. If all we put on the warrant is pablum, if people get the impression that all they're coming to town meeting for is to rubber stamp decisions that have already been made someplace else, well, why should they show up? Especially if we're going to charge them another 0.75% to sit at the restaurant.
You've hit a topic that you and I have talked about personally with respect to that, and I partially agree with you on that, and you know that. And what I mean by that is there are things that were required by law, you know, things such as appropriations, land matters. There are some things that, and I'll give you a specific example. On this current warrant, we have this optional meal tax. The law says that the only legislative body for that is the town meeting. And again, in the category of what you just said, what we can and can't bring, you know, we did have that option. The board voted to put it on, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to let town meeting decide the fate or importance or the unimportance of that particular topic. But you did raise another matter, and that is the petition item. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think this is really an important piece for the town folk in terms of what they can do. The town charter gives some specific. There are different rules for petition articles depending upon whether it's an annual town meeting and a special town meeting. And I don't know what you feel about that. You're a strong believer in petition articles. Are you not?
Yes, I am. They should, you know, they should be well thought out. The state law sets the rules on how petition articles end up on the warrant. At the annual town meeting, I think it only takes 10 signatures to put something on the warrant. At a special town meeting, I think it was 100 signatures to
Right.
get something on the warrant, and there are deadlines when those signatures have to be brought in, and anyone petitioning for an article should avail themselves. I think that Bud would make town council available to anyone who wishes to formulate the wording for a petition article to make sure that it is legally sound when we put it up there.
Bud has, in fact, made town council available to provide guidance for petitioners. There's no question. The other piece of it is, too, town council has said to us historically, you know, if that's what they want in terms of the language, that's what typically has to go before them. We've got a petition article, as you know, that is going to be on, and the council will be ruling on that at town meeting. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. It's a very unique process, the town meeting, very unique. But it is also probably one of the purest forms of government that exist.
Yeah, I think it's the only form of pure democracy really that's left on the planet. And I have to confess to being somewhere down inside a kind of control freak, and town meeting is a control freak's worst nightmare. It's you know, there is no predicting what town meeting is going to do, and there shouldn't be. The citizens should be involved in their government. One of my favorite quotes is from Thomas Jefferson, which says the success of democracy depends on the participation of an educated and informed electorate. You couldn't find a better educated electorate in the world than you have in Sandwich. I think they would participate if they were informed. And I see a selectman's job, at least a part of it, as getting accurate information to the voters so that they are informed on questions. I would like to see town meeting attendance double or triple, but not just to get warm bodies out there. We need to have people who are informed about the issues, and that's a two-way street. People have to reach out to get the information, but the Board of Selectmen in particular, I think, has a responsibility to put that information in a form that a busy voter can pick up and in a reasonable time frame understand where we're going.
I agree.
That's why I put the energy that I have into the Selectmen's long-range plan in the 4- or 5-page format.
You've done a great job on that, by the way, and thank you.
Well, thanks. You know, a voter can pick that up. It's 4 pages, now it's 5 pages. Read it in 15, 20 minutes, think about it for another 15 or 20 minutes, and understand where the Board of Selectmen is planning on taking the town over the next, you know, it says long range. It contains a lot of relatively short range objectives, but all the short range objectives build toward the longer range objectives that are set out in the local comprehensive plan that the town adopted in 2009. So it's
At town meeting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
At town
right.
meeting.
That's,
Let's talk about the process of town meeting. The town moderator is essentially the legal authority, moderator, and dictates under Mass General Law how those things typically work. A couple of years ago, we changed some of the rules with respect to town meeting.
being attacked by a plant.
I thought that was an artificial plant. It's an artificial plant with a life.
What was the one from the Little Shop of Horrors?
And this kind of gets to the crux of what you and I have some concerns about, and that is attendance at town meeting. There was a time when there was a quorum of 200 required before you could conduct the business. I remember being on the dais and the town moderator literally making a call on Sandwich Community Television for more people to come on down, you know, kind of thing. In subsequent years, the then town clerk made a recommendation to town meeting that we have a 0 quorum. Do you have any sense for that, whether that was a better decision or a worse decision at all? Any feelings about that?
I think that was a bad decision.
Okay.
That's just how I feel about it. I think I would be we we generate between the annual town meeting and the almost always special town meeting in the fall, we generate 35 or 40 articles for town meeting.
Right.
We have 22 on the agenda for May 7th. Of those 22, 15, 18 will probably slip right by without a lot of debate. They're relatively routine things. What I would propose, again, I proposed this to the Charter Review Committee, is we look at formalizing the additional annual town meeting, do semi-annual town meetings, one in May and one in the fall. Maybe dedicate the one in May mostly to financial things and the one in the fall to mostly organizational and the more routine things. But then we'd have a couple of 20-article town meetings at the most, and rather than have a zero quorum, just say we won't start any new business after 9:45 or something along those lines, so that, again, those busy voters who have to get up and go to work the next morning and get their kids off to school wouldn't feel that they were going to be tied up until midnight. Again, this also comes down to putting some meat and potatoes on the warrant, because why are they going to show up to rubber stamp things? Get them to come out informed about the issues and give them some sort of a guarantee that they're out of there by 10 o'clock and having transacted the business of the town.
I can only remember one meeting in my tenure as a selectman, and I'm serving in my 7th year, and I've attended, I think, just about every annual town meeting and special town meeting since I moved here permanently some 12, 13 years ago, in which we came to the magical hour, of 11 o'clock, and the moderator proposed either a vote with respect to continuing the meeting or adjourning until another date. And in that one situation, all it took really, and I'm glad we did it, we voted to continue or extend, beyond 11 o'clock, and within a half hour finished a tremendous amount of business. The other thing about town meeting, for me at least, is, and again, it gets back to this attendance kind of thing. We've tried to, over the years, attract people, and typically we know that if there's a hot button item, on there, people will come. What I've always been concerned about, as soon as that's over with, they run out.
Mass exodus.
Mass exodus. And I don't know what the answer to that question. How do we retain this?
Well, we remind people that there's an opportunity, until the meeting adjourns, there's an open-ended opportunity to reconsider any issue. So
right.
if a group of folks organizes to stack town meeting to deal with a particular issue early on the agenda, and then they exit right after that, somebody who was on, all it takes is one person who either didn't vote or who was on the losing side to say, I move that we reconsider Article whatever.
Could overturn.
And it could go the other way.
Yeah.
So we need to remind people at the beginning of the meeting that you don't want to do what you just said.
Right. Structurally, it's kind of interesting the way town meeting is set up. The moderator controls the meeting. There's counsel that's available to them. There's certain members of the elected body that are on the dais, the selectmen, finance committee members, town clerk, that kind of thing. There are members or people that have been selected by the moderator to be counters. There are different ways of voting. So let's talk a little bit about that. One of them is a voice vote, and the moderator has to make some sort of decision as to whether, there was enough, if it's a majority item, to declare it a vote.
The moderator has to have a good ear.
The moderator has to have a good ear, a very good ear. There is the card. When you, and this is important, a lot of people didn't realize, especially if you're new to town, when you come to town meeting, there are a bunch of people that are sitting outside the door with boxes and forms and warrants that they're supposed to be registered. You have to get checked off in order to get one of those voting cards. Okay, that's one of the things. So that's important. The third way of voting, which is, in my years here, I've never seen used, is the ballot. The town clerk has, and always has, Barbara Walling, the prior town clerk, and the current town clerk, Taylor White, have within them ballots if someone from the floor makes a request to have a vote on an item, because it may be one of those that's
I think it's
that's close.
seven people have to stand up
Yeah,
and say,
to make-
I want a recount, or I want a ballot, or...
Yeah, or have it, exactly. There are rules for that, which I think is good. Personally, I think is
agree.
good. You know, it allows different ways, because, you know, there have been a couple of votes that have been close, and it's not questioning, you know, any of the moderators that we've had, but there is a way of dealing with that. So I would like to sometimes on certain votes see that be considered. That's just my own personal feeling. There's another thing that's kind of unique to a town meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, typically the town moderator says to the people in the audience, if you're not a resident of town, we have a certain section of town that or of the audience or the auditorium where you need to sit. And I know on a number of occasions that people from outside the town have asked, you know, authority or authorization from the town moderator to speak, depending upon what.
Yeah, I believe all town department heads, regardless of where they reside, don't have to get a vote in order to speak. But or if a particular committee invites an architect from out of town to back up detail on some complex architectural problem, they get to speak. If a private citizen from another town wishes to speak, then they have to identify themselves as not a registered voter from Sandwich, and as a, you know, I've never seen anybody denied the right to speak.
I haven't
and
either.
I wouldn't want to see that happen, but if you know, the town meeting gets to take a voice vote on whether they want to let that person
Exactly.
speak or not.
Exactly. And that's fine. That works really well also. What are the other things that you think are strong points for town meeting, and some of the weak points if you see anything?
Well, again, the strong point is the purely democratic process that you have there. And there's always a question of when is a town or when is an entity too big for town meeting? I don't think we're anywhere close to being too big for town meeting, particularly in the 21st century, because we have all of this information technology available to us. Just doing what we're doing right now is something that wasn't available 20 years ago. You know, Twitters and Facebook and email lists, there's all kinds of ways to get information to voters. And I think, you know, we have all this 21st century technology. I think we should use it as a tool to revitalize the town meeting concept that we are currently practicing. An odd thing, about 2.5 years ago, was after I got elected, but not long after, I was reading an article in Time magazine about a province in China where what they were doing was practicing representative town meeting. Wouldn't it be ironic to have the Chinese hijack New England town meeting and to have us abandon it? It just somehow there's something wrong with that picture. The weakness, it takes longer to do things. If we had if we had a mayor and a 12 or 13 member city council, town council, you might get things done more quickly. But under Proposition 2.5, in that system, the serious stuff still has to go to the ballot anyway.
Yeah.
Still, if you're going to do an override or a capital exclusion or a debt exclusion, Proposition 2.5 dictates that it has to go to the ballot box. And in that case, town meeting is just one other way to get people informed about what they're voting on.
The current age of technology and town meeting, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, the reality is this, and I have a personal experience with my son-in-law, who happens to be a town manager in a town, where they are now using electronic voting, okay? You know, and I'm not talking about from home at the present time, but there are
They got a
gimmicks.
button at the seat, yeah.
Actually, it's like a remote control that is pre-assigned to an attendee who's registered at town meeting, and the reality is they can never take this home. If you do, they track you down to get it back.
Track you down and shoot you.
know? I'm not sure if it's that dramatic, but right then and there. And the reason why they went to this, and I'm saying that I don't see us using it yet, but it's there, is because they have such a process up there where they were spending like 20 minutes just counting the vote by hand on just about every article that is brought to town meeting. This is their history. This is this town's.
Are they representative or open?
No, it's an open town meeting. It's an open town meeting. So it's set up similar, I mean, identical actually to our system with a moderator and all, but it's a unique environment. Let me put it to you that way, which kind of has necessitated this being done.
Well, that instead of the voting cards, if you had something, it's a substitute for the card we hold up in the air.
Yeah,
right?
that's all it is.
You push a button, and if you voted yes, does that lock it? Can you change your mind?
Well, you can change your mind, but once they call the vote, then it's locked out. You're completely locked out, okay? You can't double vote or anything like that. It's a smart system. It knows. So it's expensive, you know, even to rent. We're getting close to the end of the program, Jim. So I just kind of leave it to you, and I'll say whatever I feel if I have to add, or probably not. But tell us why people need to come to town meeting, in your mind.
It is where all the important decisions in town government are made. Some of those decisions carry on to the ballot box. There's a misconception on the debt exclusions and capital exclusions and overrides that they have to be sequential. First town meeting authorizes them to go to the ballot, and then the ballot verifies it. That's not true. You can vote, you can do the ballot first and the town meeting afterwards. The key is it has to pass in both places.
Right.
So
we've chosen what we have, though, for our method.
We do it in the order that we do it. Town meeting, again, it is the purest form of democracy that still exists on the planet. The Sandwich electorate is extremely well educated. They're very capable of absorbing and understanding the information that we can give to them. We should be informing those voters, and those voters should, if they're concerned about schools, they should come out and represent schools. If they're concerned about taxes on
CPA
businesses, they should get out.
zoning,
If they're concerned about community preservation and lifestyle, they should get out there and do that. It's there's the 4 categories that are identified in the Selectmen's long-range plan. It's providing services, the capital infrastructure to support those services, economic development, which is essential to the lifeblood of a community like any community, and then there's the lifestyle and community preservation.
Right.
So if you're concerned about decisions that are being made that are going to affect the lives of your kids or the lives of the senior citizens, which you and I are part of in this town.
I say that with pride.
As well. The citizens should want to partake of this. The first town meetings I went to in Sandwich were in 1959, 60, and 61. As a civics student, my civics teacher and my mother insisted that I go. I had to stand against the back wall over at the wing multi-purpose room because the voters occupied all the chairs.
Right.
And there were only 1,100 people in town then, probably maybe 600-700 of them qualified to vote, and there were still 200 and some of them in the room.
Wow, that's a good percentage.
At Article 20.
Yeah.
So, the voters, half the voters at least showed up. And we were all, people were civil to each other. That's the key. It's maybe if civility is really lost in society today, maybe town meeting should be lost too. But as long as we can be civil to each other, town meeting is the way to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
Good. I would simply say in closing that the town warrant article for annual town meeting is on the town website. I'd strongly encourage you to visit that. If you don't have the capability electronically to view that, Town Hall has copies that they can give you of it. The document's around 40 pages long, I believe, something like that. Has all of the information about every warrant article. There's other supplemental information, long-range plan. There are voting rules, guidelines for you, and other attachments. So hopefully you will read that. Hopefully you will come to annual town meeting on Monday, May 7th, 2012. It starts at 7 o'clock. Please come, and thank you for listening. And thank you, Jim, for coming.
You're welcome.
It's always a pleasure.
Always.
Always mine. Thank you. Good day.